Welcome to the real life show, Living with a Chronic Illness. We are your hosts, Cassie and Chelsea. I'm Cassie, a single mom living with a chronic illness who is extremely passionate about living a full and happy life.
And I'm Chelsea. I have a passion for helping people to put themselves first and to be the best version of themselves each and every day.
We came together to create the Spoonies Hub, an uplifting community that offers resources, guidance, support, and offers you the space to be yourself, be heard, and feel understood. We hope that by providing tips and tricks from experts, we help people with chronic conditions to thrive and live the lives they've dreamed of.
This show is not only for those who live with a chronic illness or disability, but their friends, family, spouses, and just anyone else existing on the earth. Our goal is to normalize having a chronic condition by sharing real stories with real people and to show the world how relatable those everyday struggles can be. There's a little something in here for everyone.
And a special shout out to our community at the Spoonies Hub. Thanks to your contributions, we are able to provide flexible work opportunities for Spoonies, donate to our nonprofit to help provide wellness treatments for those who need it, and be able to transcribe our podcast to make it more accessible for all. To learn more, visit our show notes.
Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the real life show, Living with a Chronic Illness. Today, we are super thrilled to be interviewing Paulina Burzynska, who is a rheumatoid arthritis warrior since the age of 18. Paulina went from dancing 5 nights a week to not being able to get dressed by herself to then being a certified yoga teacher offering chronically friendly yoga classes. She's incredibly passionate about helping others and spreading real positivity and brings a whole new meaning to yoga, which is discussed throughout our episode. So we thoroughly encourage you to listen to this new perspective on yoga.
Yeah, as movement professionals ourselves, Cassie and I had a lot of similarities with the way that Paulina views movement and how she approaches yoga. It's very similar to how both of us approach Pilates, but it's so refreshing to hear someone else from a different movement modality be able to share their feelings, their thoughts, because it truly helped us deeply realize that it doesn't matter what you do as long as you're doing something that works for you and your body. And it was so wonderful having talked to Paulina a little bit already to be able to get her full story. And because she's over in Europe, she's lived in England and is now in Germany, she was able to share some of her experiences with different healthcare systems, which we also found very, very interesting. So make sure you listen to the entire episode. This one is a good one. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the real life show, Living with a Chronic Illness. We have one of our Spoonies Hub experts with us today, Paulina Burzynska.
Yay!
Paulina is an amazing yoga instructor who teaches yoga for us in the Spoonies Hub every month. She's got a whole bunch of classes on there already, so you should go check them out if you're a Spoonies Hub member. If you're not, go sign up. You have a free week. Check them out anyways. So, hi, Paulina. Thank you for spending time with us today.
I am so excited to be here, girls.
Yay!
Yay! All right. So now, will you tell us about your story, Paulina?
Yes. Oh my gosh, where do I begin? When you told me that I can go as long or as short as I want to, I was like, okay, so which option do I take?
Take the long one.
We really like people's stories here.
Mm-hmm, we do.
All right, awesome. So my story goes back to 2014, and giving you a little bit of an insight of like before what happened before I started getting my symptoms. I was a dancer who was dancing like 6 nights a week. So pretty much every night I would be going from work, home, eat, take a nap, go dancing. So I was sort of on the go all the time. And then one day I woke up and it literally was an overnight switch of like my whole body. I woke up one morning and I wasn't able to get dressed. I wasn't able to make myself a cup of tea. I couldn't open my front doors to my house. I literally had to knock at my neighbor's doors to open my house doors because I couldn't even turn the keys of the doors. So like when you imagine someone so busy all the time and then going from like such an extreme to like the complete other extreme, it was a huge shift in my life. I then, at that time, I was still living in England, and the process in England, for anyone that's not familiar, is like you have to go to your family doctor, which is the GP, and then they can refer you on to any specialists or refer you on somewhere else to see a different doctor. However, these GPs are not super great. They're not really very helpful. So the first time I went to see one, because obviously something was going on, I was pretty much given a paracetamol for 2 weeks and come back if it doesn't get better. And obviously it didn't get better after 2 weeks of paracetamol.
Yeah, and paracetamol for the Americans is like kind of like aspirin or ibuprofen.
Yeah.
Equivalent.
Thank you, Cassie, for always being the translator.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm pretty sure I know what that is, but I'm kind of guessing. I'm assuming. Yay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's like, it's just given for anything and everything when the doctor just wants to push you off for a bit longer to see if you're not faking your symptoms. And yeah, so, and obviously it didn't help. So then I went back to my GP. I still didn't get any help from them. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I know I didn't get any help from them. And my condition was still really bad. I mean, I still wasn't able to get dressed. I still wasn't able to do the things on a normal, like, live basis, on a day-to-day life. So me and my mother took the initiative to just go to the emergencies at the hospital. Because when you go to the emergencies and the doctor from the emergency room writes a referral letter or like a recommendation letter to your GP stating this patient needs to see this specialist, then they actually do something about it. And then they actually forward you on to a specialist.
Interesting.
So yeah, this is pretty much what happened. I went to the emergencies, and at the emergencies, you have to wait like 4 hours before you're seen by anyone anyway. Was given the recommendation letter, went back to my GP with a smirk on my face being like, well, paracetamol wouldn't have helped me. But that's just, yeah. And then I finally was recommended to go to see a rheumatoid specialist. And the way that the system works in England, it was just super fun. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is because I now have a comparison of like the English structure to the German one now that I'm living in Germany. So in England, the GP tells you, or at least that's what happened in my area, I would be told, yeah, okay, we'll refer you to a specialist, go home and wait for a letter with your appointment date on it. So it's sort of still put in the trust that the GP is going to do it, that they did press that button on the system, and you don't really know how long you're going to wait for that letter, because it could be a week, it could be a whole month that you're waiting.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, I did receive a letter. I then went to see my rheumatoid specialist, and it was just sort of like a ticking the box of like a patient just coming through the door and like, okay, take this one done, on to the next one. So it wasn't like a human conversation, hey, how are you doing? I was presented with a stick man figure on a piece of paper and told to circle the joints that were hurting me.
Did you just circle the whole figure?
I did that so many times. Mm-hmm. And that is crazy because at the moment that you're at your appointment, you could be having a good day or you could be having a bad day. So do you circle the joints that were hurting you for the past 2 months, for the past 3 months, or just for that day? Mm-hmm. It's a really, really crappy representation of where your condition is at, in my opinion, anyway. And then I was put on methotrexate, but on pills, so on the oral form. And I was also given a steroid injection into my bum because my whole body was flaring. So it wasn't even like, take a steroid injection into a specific joint, because everything was hurting. However, that steroid injection did nothing. Like, I did not feel a single bit of relief. And I think it had to be like a month later, because you can only see the rheumatoid specialist every 3 months for where I am. So it was like, okay, we'll see you in 3 months. Have fun with your new medication and your new life, without any help at all. So I think it must have been a month afterwards, and I finally got through to them to call them that nothing's getting better. And then I was provided with steroids, but on a daily basis with pills. And that actually put me on my feet, and I was able to get back to sort of living my normal life. But as soon as I got my diagnosis and as soon as I found out that this is what I have, it was like immediate Google search. Like Uncle Google was my best friend and also my worst enemy at the same time.
Google can be a scary place sometimes.
Yes, it really can be. But being the only person, literally the only person in my family that has a chronic condition, that has rheumatoid arthritis, no one in my family even came across anyone with it. So it was really, really like a huge unknown. Plus, my parents didn't speak super well English either. So it was sort of like a lot of it was just on me to figure it out because no one really knew what to do anyway. So yeah, Uncle Google was sort of helpful, sort of not helpful. And I was now I'm going to go into like the health side of things, but I was always sort of healthy, but not to the extent that I am now. Like before, I would eat not McDonald's every day or takeaway every day, but I would eat just to eat, you know, like, okay, there's dinner, my mom made something, great, this is what I'm going to eat. But as soon as I started making these Google searches and finding out, okay, rheumatoid arthritis, that means inflammation. So what can I do for my body to help with my inflammation and all of these different things? And then I came across these different nutrition advice. And then it was like a huge shift from Paulina, who was very fussy and would not eat something that she never tried before, to, okay, yeah, now I'm going to eat this and this because this is what it's going to do for my body. And this is why I'm eating it. So even when it was something that I really didn't enjoy the taste of, it was like, okay, I'm going to have a full plate and this whole thing that I don't like, I'm just going to eat first and then stuff my face with something that I really enjoy so that I don't even focus on the taste of something bad. Because for me, it was so important to give my body something natural, considering the fact that I knew I'm going to have to be on this medication for a very long time. And for me, immediately, it was sort of like, okay, this is not a super great sign for my body in terms of the side effects, in terms of what it's doing on the inside. Obviously, on the other side of the whole medical spectrum. So I made a huge load of changes in my diet, but still nothing like, I didn't see a nutritionist, I didn't see a dietitian. It was just my own trial and error. Okay, how do I feel after this? And it takes time. I'm still trying things out. I'm still figuring out new things. And it's been how many years now? So it's still an ongoing like learning journey process of this whole thing. And then another thing that was very prominent in my Google search was the movement side of things. That, yeah, okay, movement is great, do some exercise, but I never actually even found like a specific exercise routine or type. You know, it was just, even the term yoga, even if I found that, and I can't actually really remember if that was there, but I know that doctors now still recommend, okay, yeah, try yoga or try Tai Chi or try Pilates, right? For arthritis, it could help you. But then you look at it and you're like, okay, so I'm a patient with no experience in yoga. And then I go to a hot yoga, Ashtanga, superpower based yoga.
Bad idea. Very bad idea.
And then you'll be like, oh, my doctor told me this is going to help because this is yoga. And that is just really, you know, it's advice, but it's not full on advice because that patient doesn't truly know where to go to. There's so many different options of different Pilates teachers, different Tai Chi styles, different ways of doing yoga. And if you just look at it, the generic term, then I am not surprised that people look at yoga and you're like, no, I'm never going to go because this, that. Like, I'm completely not surprised at all. If my doctor told me that at that point, which I wasn't told any natural ways of dealing with this. I wasn't told any things that would help me. I would be freaked out if I went to a power yoga class. I'm like, this is meant to help me. I'm in bed the whole day afterwards.
Yeah. See, that makes me so happy to hear you say, and why I'm just so excited that you're teaching for us in the Spoonie Hub, because you do have to be safe with your body when you're chronically ill. And it is scary when you go to a class somewhere or you take a class online and that teacher may not have any experience feeling what it's like or watching clients. They may not have worked with clients who have these like restrictions and stuff. And yoga is especially, I think, one of the ones who kind of one of the modalities that like suffers from that more than some other, because, you know, like for example, a spoonie is not just going to go up to like a HIIT class and be like, yeah, this is what I need, because most of us are going to look at it like, okay, yeah, there's no way I can freaking do high intensity interval training. But yoga, you'll be like, yeah, it's supposed to be good for you. And then, yeah, you'll go to like the wrong kind of class, and then it's like terrifying and it hurts. And so, I'm just like so happy that you're kind of, that you've experienced that. And then now you are who you are, teaching what you're teaching. And I'm really excited to take sloth yoga with you on Saturday.
Oh, yes. I'm so excited for that. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
It's so true. Everything you say, you have to, like, when you look at the whole picture, there's just so many scary things out there, even if you do exactly what your doctor told you, but because the doctor maybe doesn't have that knowledge specifically, they weren't able to help you.
One thing I want to like interject real quick is when kind of like Paulina, you're talking about, and Cassie, you're talking about, if you are trying to find a way to exercise and move your body, find a movement professional that knows how to work with individuals with chronic illnesses. And I say that as I'm a certified personal trainer, I'm a certified Pilates instructor. Like, I've been in the movement world for a long time. And there are some people that I've worked with, some colleagues, some former colleagues, that I'd be like, yes, they would be great to work with individuals with chronic illness. They know how to challenge people without pushing them over the edge. They know how to listen to their client. They know how to help their client find their movement abilities. And then there's some that I'd be like, good God, please never work with anyone with a chronic illness or chronic condition, because you're not going to get it. And that's okay. That there's a whole host of other people that they can work with, but really try to find someone who understands what fatigue, what pain, what limitations, what modifications need to be made. So that way you can exercise safely. And if you're like, I don't know how to find that in our area, come to the Spoonie Hub, take Paulina's classes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God, that was a great idea. And plus, yes, that's such a great point. And also, if you are wanting to see someone like in person, maybe even when COVID is over, you could definitely like reach out to us and we can help you screen them, because we kind of know what to look for. But yeah, you're totally right. Like, shop around for an instructor. And yeah, if you are in the meantime looking for someone in person, check out Paulina. And we have some other great instructors in our Spoonie Hub as well, who are also, they have their own chronic illness, so they know what's up. Like Liv and Allie.
Yes, exactly. And this is also so nice what you mentioned now about like trying out different teachers, because very often, and this is what I feel really upset about, that a lot of people in the chronic community do, is they try something once, it doesn't work, and then they completely give up on it.
Yes.
Where actually, like, yoga is not the same. Every single teacher, and that's beautiful, right? Every single teacher will give you a different spin on it, will focus on different things. So you just have to find the right person for the right type of movement for you. And it's not just that this teacher didn't work for you, and it's like yoga didn't work for you, right? It's just that teacher didn't work for you.
Shop for the instructor, not necessarily not necessarily like the exercise modality or whatever, but yeah, shop for the person. Yeah, that's so true. I'm actually really glad that you said that too, because I've given yoga like multiple tries. I say tries in quotes over the years, because I actually really enjoy yoga. Okay, so actually one of my favorite yoga classes was oh my God, what was it exactly called? It was not zodiac yoga or astrology yoga, but basically it was all these yoga poses to do with like astrology stuff, with all these breath patterns, and like, you know, when the sun is in Leo or the moon, and these interesting breath patterns. And it was the least yoga class that I've ever done. But it was, I don't know, man, it was crazy. So that just goes to show, like, you got to try all the things. And I'm super excited to do sloth yoga. I just think that's like the best name for a class ever. And as soon as she posted about it, I was like, yeah, I'm doing that. Okay, so you were saying you tried some yoga. We kind of went on our tangent there from your story.
That's perfect. No, that's perfect. Yeah, so movement was one of those Google searches that I found was going to help me. However, I don't think I actually paid a lot of attention to it right in the beginning because I was already a dancer, so I was very active from that angle already. And it sort of seemed really hard to find anything else or do anything else on top of that. So I really much focused on nutrition and food from that angle in the beginning. And then sort of fast forward 6 months into my diagnosis, after I've made a lot of changes in my nutrition, I invested a bit of money into supplements and vitamins to help my body fight things, whatever it was going through as well. And then Paulina woke up one day and was like, do you know what? I'm just going to stop my medication and see how I do. So after 6 months of being on medication, I think every one of us at least tried that once. I just was like, do you know what? I don't need it. I eat well. I'm on supplements. I'm much healthier now, so I'm going to be fine. And I stopped my medication like overnight. I didn't tell my doctor. I didn't do anything. I just stopped my medication. And to anyone listening to this, don't ever do that. Like that is a really, really bad thing to do. Definitely always talk to your doctor about it. I feel super lucky for how that went for me because I actually went into remission for 2 years after that. So yeah, I was like,
my mouth just dropped for our listeners who can't see us right now.
Yeah, so I felt really lucky. I went to see my doctor, I think it was 2 months after I stopped taking any medication. And once again, I go super proud into my doctor, get given the stick man figure of circa the joints that are hurting me right now. And I'm like, actually, I'm fine. Like, I'm good. I mean, my remission, I know that each one of us has a different definition of what remission is to us. And for me, remission was being able to do the day-to-day things without limitations. So yes, I was still having certain pains if I overdid it one day and I overdid a specific use of a joint from, I don't know, jumping up and down on my feet. But it wasn't like debilitating me on a daily basis. So that is what remission was to me. And I wasn't on medication.
I'm writing this down. I'm really glad that you mentioned that, like saying remission is what it is. Like it means something different to everybody. And for you choosing that you could do all the things that you wanted to in a day, but knowing that if you overdid it, like you've overdone it, like anyone can do. But that, I mean that, like I haven't ever quite heard about it talked about like that, and that makes me feel hopeful that I could one day be there too. Thank you for sharing that. Of like, you need to choose what your definition of remission is. Okay, so you got there. You didn't have to circle the whole stick figure.
Yeah, and just to like add on a little bit about this remission thing, because it's so true, and it's really good to speak to your doctor about it as well. Like tell your doctor that, do you know what? For me, remission, this is what I will be happy with, and this is what remission means to me. Because for some doctors, remission could be like 0 pain, 0 everything, and 0 medication. For some others, it could be lower dose of medication and 0 pain, and that's to them remission. So everyone has this sort of like a different view at it. So it's good to communicate with your doctor and even just with yourself, like see how you're feeling now and see how you can progress with little steps going forward. So yeah, for me, that was that. And yeah, I went to my doctor. I said that I'm actually feeling pretty good. And then I was asked, okay, so like, you know, did you do anything? Did you change anything? And then I basically told them, yeah, I haven't been on my medication for the past, 2 months? And their jaws dropped. They're like, oh. And then they put their pen down and actually listened to what their patient was about to say. And you're like, okay.
So I was like, I love that. You got their attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I was like, actually, yeah. So I did this, I did that. And I told them all of the nutritional changes that I did with turmeric, with different seeds, with smoothies, with supplements, all of that. And then what they said afterwards is going to stay with me for the rest of my life. They were like, yeah, that's exactly what you should have done. And I was like,
oh, that's not what I was expecting.
But they didn't tell you that, did they?
Exactly. None of them even told me that. And I was like, that
But
was
like,
the point that my whole relationship towards doctors was completely changed. Because I was like, so you think that I did well by doing this, but none in our conversations did you even mention, yeah, look up nutrition, look up what you could do to yourself to help yourself in natural ways. They just sort of gave you the medication and let you go. So I had a really strange experience with my doctor. I'm not saying that every, experience with a doctor will be the same, because maybe there are some others out there, but that's just pretty much what happened to me. And yeah, I got their attention, and then I was fine. I still was going to see them, I think, every 3 or 4 months, because I was feeling fine and okay. And then when I went into remission was when I sort of got introduced to yoga. One of my friends from dance is a yoga teacher. And she was just always saying to me, like, come try it, come try it. So one day when I was feeling good, this was like during this 2 years of remission, I was like, okay, I'll go and try it. And she is a yoga teacher of Ashtanga yoga. And Ashtanga yoga is like powerful moves, sort of very much focused on the strength and certain poses that you do within it. And I was fine. I really loved it. I went for my first session. I was completely mesmerized. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I think that the reason why I connected to it straight away was because at that point in my life, I was sort of someone who would always be helping the other people around me. I was always doing something for my family. I was always doing something for my friends, or translating, or helping my sister. And that 1 hour of yoga was just for me. And that, I think that touched me so much on like such a deep level that in my first lesson, even though it was Ashtanga yoga, I cried. I was like, oh my God, like all of those things and all of those emotions that I felt the need to keep in because I had to be strong for other people to help them and support others. I was like, oh my gosh, like this 1 hour, I can just be myself. I don't have to put up a face. I don't have to fake who I am. I don't have to be strong for anyone. And it was just for me. So from that moment on, I was like, no, I have to come here more often because this just feels good and this is for me. So from then on, I sort of was dancing and doing yoga like 3 times a week, and then dancing like 4 or 5 times a week. So I was really active and developing my knowledge and strength in the yoga practice. And obviously, as you progress with each lesson that you do, you feel your body changing. You feel your body either getting stronger or more flexible. And that feeling is super addicting. So I just continued going. And then fast forward to 3 years ago, I moved to Germany. So I made the decision to move to Germany. My partner lives here and I managed to find a job. So I was like, you know what? Let's just try. Let's see what happens. The English weather was never for me. So I was really happy to escape that.
Wait, is German weather better than the English weather?
I mean, it's farther south. So wouldn't it be?
So Germany has seasons.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
It's probably like the difference between like living in Montana and living in Kansas.
Probably. Yeah, that's you're probably right. Because I mean, yeah, the seasons,
I mean, maybe not exact
fair.
distance wise, but yeah.
I always just picture, like snowy Berlin in the movies and it's cold and you need a furry jacket. Berlin/Moscow in my mind is the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
It's not. I know it's not. But like, that vision of like cold is like, but my stepdad, he actually speaks fluent German and he lived in Germany for years and he loved it. And so, but I guess I haven't really interacted with many Germans. So, okay. So you decided that the weather was better than England, which is totally
seasons.
I decided that I definitely, enjoy the seasons. I don't mind cold, I don't mind warm, but I like to have all of this in like 1 year. I like to have a mixture of all of these things.
Yes. Kansas has that where we are in the US. We have all the seasons.
Well, it's nice, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so then I decided to move to Germany, and I moved here actually in November, so I'll be coming up to my 3-year anniversary in Germany. And as you can imagine, with moving countries to a place where you don't know the language, you don't know any friends, you don't know any people, you're learning in new ways, my body was like, hi, I'm still here. And a huge flare hit me pretty much like a week or a couple of weeks after moving here. It was back to like square zero, even worse than it was the first time I flared.
How interesting.
This time it hit me a lot more on my lower limbs. So like my ankles, my toes, my knees, not so much, but my ankles and my feet were really bad. So I wasn't able to walk properly. I was limping all the time. My fingers and my wrists were flaring as well, but my hands tend to be a lot, they flare a lot more often. So that was sort of like normal-ish, but to a higher extent. And yeah, so then I flared, and it was really bad because I haven't managed to find a doctor here yet. I didn't have a specialist here yet or anything like that. I was completely new to the German way of healthcare system. But yeah, so luckily the way that it went here is you don't actually need a referral from your GP to go to see a specialist as much as you do in England. So it works slightly differently. I went to get an appointment at the orthopedist because the specialist waiting list was like months to go actually get yourself a specialist. And I went to see our orthopedist because my partner was going to him and he had like open appointments. So it was sort of like the first case just to see if someone else could help me in a more immediate way because I needed like help there and then. And then I went there, and I think because obviously I already had my diagnoses, it was a lot easier because I didn't need anyone to tell me what's going on. I just needed medication and I needed some treatment plan. And then that orthopedist, I'll forever be grateful to him. He literally on the same day called the rheumatoid specialist that I have until this point and was like, this lady needs someone like now. And she squeezed me in like 3 or 4 days afterwards in between her other appointments. So when I went to see her, yes, I did have to wait a super long time in the waiting room because she was squeezing me in between people she was seeing. But I am so grateful because I was seen super quickly. I know that no matter where you are when it comes to like seeing these specialists, it can take quite a long time to actually get to one and see one. And yeah, then I went there and my whole experience was very different. You'll get given a sheet of paper with like 30 questions while you're still in the waiting area waiting. And these questions basically ask how you're doing, but in relation to like real life scenarios. So you have a question saying, can you run quickly 150 meters to catch the bus? And then you have yes, but with pain, or no, not at all. And that is how you like score your pain levels. Or for example, can you get out of a high bed? Can you pick up a box from the floor and put it on a shelf above your head? So like really scenario-based things. And that was mind-blowing for me, from going from a stick man and cycling to like actually analyzing, oh, can I do that? You know, sometimes when you're just going around your day, you don't even think about all of these things. And then you have to pause for a second and then think about, okay, yeah, so actually, no, I can't do that. Or I can't write a postcard letter or something like this, because it also asked you about these things. And then I went to see her. And she prescribed me methotrexate, but this time in injections. And I was like, oh, okay, so from going from pills to injections, like, oh, how this is going to go? Because I was never someone who enjoyed needles. I don't think anyone ever does, really. And actually, now that I've been on this for 3 years, I've actually had less side effects from the injections than I did from the oral, like pill form.
That's interesting.
Yeah, my nausea is not as bad and my hair doesn't fall out as much. It still falls out from methotrexate, but it's not as bad as it was in the beginning. And fatigue. So my fatigue is a lot lower, pretty much non-existent at the moment as a side effect from the drug anyway, in comparison to what it was to the pills that I was taking in England. And then she also put me on prednisone. So it started off with 25 milligrams methotrexate, and I think it was like 20 milligrams of prednisone in the beginning. So super high dosage of both.
Yeah, kind of like trying to take care of crisis management in a way, because that's definitely like heavy duty stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, to start out. But they do some, like I said, that's at least how I've had doctors put it, is like you're in crisis mode and we need to get that taken care of.
Exactly. It's like a first like to get your life sort of back to normal if like, you can function on a day-to-day basis without this additional stress of your pain being that extreme. And yeah, obviously I was put on the prednisone, but it was sort of like take 1 week for 20 milligrams, the next week 15, the following week 10, and decrease it, as it tends to be with steroid pills. So now it's been 3 years that I'm on methotrexate, and it's so great that we actually get to do this interview today, because around 3 months ago I went to see my specialist, and she's really, really good. She is like takes time to listen to me. She takes into account the fact that I really don't like medication, and she knows to not even suggest like paracetamol or ibuprofen to me, because I'll just look at her and be like, I'm not gonna take that. If I'm really bad, I'd rather do something proper with my medication than take these painkillers so often. So she's really great. And that's definitely another tip that I'd say to anyone listening to this. Like, if your relationship with your doctor is not spot on, you need to move on and find someone else, or do your best to find someone else, because that is such an important thing, to have that good professional understanding, positive relationship with your doctor, because it's not just them telling you take this medication, that's it. It's a two-way system. You tell them how you feel, you say what you want, you know your body better than any doctor would know. And only by working together on the treatment plan or on the process of everything, you can find out the best way to go forward with it. So
I completely agree.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm really grateful that actually the first doctor that I came to here in Germany was like really spot on. I have nothing bad to say about her, other than the fact that I think she overworks herself. So that's not my problem. Yeah, and so 3 months ago, I started to experience a lot more wrist pain. And I mean, the wrist pain was already started from like February this year. But only 3 months ago, I decided, okay, no, this pain felt different. After you live with a chronic illness for a while, you sort of find out what pain is inflammation, what pain is stiffness, what pain is weird and different, and what one is, just overuse of joint from the day before. You get to know your body that way. And I knew that the pain I was getting in my wrist was different. It was not what I was used to. It was completely like something new to me. So I went to see my doctor. She then, we did an ultrasound and an x-ray of my wrist. And then we find out that I've got acute chronic inflammation in my wrist, which is not even visible on the outside, but it was on the inside in my, like these little joints that I have like in your wrist and in your fingers and everything. And I was like, oh, that is very funny. And then she said, so I think that now you've been on methotrexate for 3 years, and we were on the process of decreasing my medication to hopefully get me to a point of remission. She was like, okay, well, maybe methotrexate is not the best thing for your body anymore, because you've been on it for a while and nothing, like the shift of of the wrist pain didn't go away. So we need to start new medication. And then I was told, okay, you're going to go on a biologic. And we spent like 20 minutes in that appointment, which I think was the first time I ever spent that long with my doctor, because pretty much all of my appointments were like 5 minutes long, because I didn't have that many questions. And then 20-minute appointment, because I had tons of questions, because it was something super new to me. During the appointment where I found out about this new medication, I was like in this, this organized mode, right? Like ask this question, get this detail, get that. And I didn't let my emotions come through. But then I came out of the appointment room and I sat down in the waiting area to have my blood tests done because I had to have some extra tests done to make sure my body is healthy. I had to check my armpit situation. Do you girls know about my armpit situation?
No.
I'll tell you and everyone else listening. That's so fun. A little surprise there, a little addition. Anyways, I had to have a lot of tests done. And when I sat down in the waiting area to have my blood test done, I was like nearly on the verge of crying because it was scary, right? Starting new medication is not easy. It's something completely new for the body. It's something completely new for your system. You don't know how you're going to react to it. And then at the same time, I found out that it's also going to be injections, and it's going to be 2 injections the first 3 times that I do it. So it's like, oh my gosh, 3 needles in 1 week. What am I going to do? Like, how is my stomach going to look like? I'm going to be in braces all the time. And it's just, yeah, it was a lot to take in. So it was a very emotional few days of trying to just even accept that I need to start additional new medication. And I think also the reason why I felt it to that extent was because the pain that I was having, yes, it was bad in the sense when I was putting weight on my wrist. So when I was pressing on my hand and then that pressure going into the wrist, that's when it was causing me a lot of pain. But it wasn't to the extreme of like debilitating me on the day-to-day tasks. Mm-hmm. So I think like in my head, it was like, yeah, but do I really need new medication? Like I'm not that bad. And that's what I was thinking to myself, which is what made it super hard to accept that fact. But then it took 2 months for me to complete all of the tests, and I'll get to the little armpit surprise in a minute. It took 2 months to do all of the tests that I had to do. And while this whole process was going on, my body was getting more and more flares. Like my wrists got worse. My elbow started to have a flare. And when my elbow flares, I think it's like one of my worst flares that I get because I lose mobility in it straight away. I can't straighten my hand. And we grab things all the time with our hands. So when you're grabbing things, you don't think, I'm just going to slightly grab it. You just extend your arm and then the pain comes back shooting in because you've extended your arm for too much, too quickly. So it's one of those flares or one of those pains that I really, really dislike because it's there with you all the time with my elbow. One that I really dislike. So I think once I started having these more flares in more parts of my body, it was easier to accept this new medication. I was like, okay, actually, no, my body needs it. And we just caught it on early on. So I didn't have to get to this point to see my doctor, but I caught it just with my wrist. The ultrasound showed what it showed. And that inflammation that was in my wrist, by the looks of it, it was in other areas too. It just took a bit more time to show itself out.
Pardon the interruption, but Cassie and I want to make sure that you know about this amazing resource that we are so excited to be able to offer you guys. We put our heads together and Cassie and I created our Mastering Energy Management Workbook. It is a 21-day workbook designed to get you in touch with your energy, what you really want in your life, and then give you tools to actually make that freaking happen. Cassie and I have gone through this process ourselves multiple times, and each time we learn something new and we get a little bit more in touch with ourselves and our energy levels. You can find our workbook on Amazon for either a Kindle copy or a paperback copy, and the link will be in the show notes. We also have 21 days of podcasts going through each day of the workbook. So if you want to get an idea of what we're talking about, make sure to check those out on our podcast. Now back to the show.
So it became a lot easier to accept, and it's so silly. Like we shouldn't have to wait until we're in extreme pain to accept new medication. We should do everything to prevent it. But that's what happened to me mentally. It's a lot easier. So now a little surprise about my armpit. Was it a year ago? I think it was like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. I started experiencing pain in my armpit and a little lump. So obviously the first scary thing you think of is like, okay, what's going on with my lymph nodes? Should it be happening or not? And I went to have a lot of tests done. I had an ultrasound done. And then I found out, drum roll, then I found out that I've got extra breast tissue under my armpit.
How interesting.
I love that. I love saying that to people because no one is aware that these things happen. And I didn't know either. I was like, so what does that mean? And don't get me twisted, girls. I don't have a nipple there. This is not a third boob. It's just literally like a normal armpit, but underneath the skin and the tissue that's there is not like armpit tissue, it's breast tissue. And the doctor said actually it's fine, like it's not dangerous. It just hurts more when you're on your period. Like your breasts
weird.
And your breasts hurt more when you're on your period. Your hormones are like going crazy. And you feel a lot more in your armpit because like sometimes it hurts so much that even like putting my arm down onto the t-shirt and that crease of the t-shirt, it hurts that much. Pressure. Like with our boobs and our bras, right? Sometimes it's so uncomfortable we can't even lay down on our breasts when we have our periods. So it was that sort of pain. Very strange, very funny. But because I have this thing in my armpit, my doctor said, okay, you need to check that out to make sure that it is still just breast tissue. There's nothing extra happening there. Like there's no virus or infection or any bacteria. Because when you add on an extra immunosuppressant, your body is going to be even under more stress. So you don't want to have any infection that could possibly develop into something more because of the new medication. So yeah, it took me a little bit longer to do all of these tests to make sure that everything is fine with my blood and then in my armpit, beautiful situation. And then going from like gynecologist to the MRI to the ultrasound, all of these places. But luckily it's now 4 weeks. I just did my second dose of my biologics last week. And
was that Humira?
No, Cimzia.
Cimzia? Yeah, I've heard of that one too. Yeah.
So that's what I started. And you take double dosage the first 3 times and you do it every 2 weeks. So that's sort of the plan that I've heard everyone gets put on, and that's what I was put on as well. And actually going back to like what I said about that relationship with your doctor, how it's a communication between you both on deciding what happens. So when I went to see my doctor before I got my prescription, she said, okay, maybe we will just start you off with 1 dosage of Cimzia rather than that double dosage that everyone does. And I was like, why? Because I was ready for that double dosage. Plus my body was getting really bad. Steroids weren't even helping me because she also put me on daily steroids. And even when they weren't helping my flare. So I knew that like something more has to be done. And I wanted that, that normal life back. And I asked her like, okay, but why should I go on 1 dosage and not double dosage? And then she said, yeah, because what if your armpit and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, but that's just my breast. Like there's nothing extra happening there. We don't have to stress about this. It's fine. And this is where it's so important for that trust between patient and doctor and patient, because she trusted what I said. She trusts that I know that this is a serious thing and I wouldn't just put my body under another medication, even if I had a slight doubt that it could be like bacteria or virus or something. And then she said, okay, let's just do double dosage then so that I can feel better quicker. And this is why this trust and that relationship is so important, because if we didn't trust each other, that wouldn't have happened. And maybe I would have gone under a different route. And I'm so glad that we went for the double dosage route, because the first double dosage that I took now 3 weeks ago, yeah, because I just took my second one last week. 2 days after I took it, and this is crazy to me, 2 days after I took it, my elbow flare was gone, which I've had for months now. And that's insane to me. And this is huge to me because I told you how much I hate my elbow flare. So when that was gone, I was like, oh my God, I can, bend my arm again. I can fully extend it without any pain. I've got my mobility back because it was just the inflammation restricting that mobility. So actually this whole, hustle and everything, it was so worth it because I feel so much better now. My body is pretty much like completely fine, with little quotation marks here, because we're always having some aches and pains. but it's at a very, very manageable point at the minute. And with only the difference of my knees feeling different and weird, but that's a conversation for next week with my doctor. So from that side, now I'm feeling a lot better, onto like a better route. And with this whole process, when going back to this yoga side of things for a while, when I moved to Germany, I had to stop yoga. I stopped yoga because my yoga instructor is in England. And I really, really loved her. I loved her classes. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I tried a couple of other teachers, but I just didn't connect with them to that extent that I connected with her. And the 2 years so 2 years up until the beginning of this year, I didn't do much yoga. I did it every now and then, sometimes on my own a little bit. And then sort of this pandemic situation happened, and my yoga teacher from England started giving lessons online because everyone was online. So I was like, oh my God, like my favorite teacher is online. This is amazing. I was so hyped up, so excited. And I started, and like I attended one of her lessons. And then after that one lesson, I realized that my body is nowhere near what it used to be 3 years ago. I was like, do you know what? I can't do this yoga thing anymore. Like these poses, they're just not, I can't do Ashtanga yoga anymore. This is too strong for me, too intense. And rather than having those benefits of feeling more relaxed and more healed after a yoga session, I was feeling the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it clicked to me. And I was like, okay, but I knew that thing about yoga, that there's different styles, different teachers offer different ways. So I started researching it a little bit more. And then from that on, it's been roaming around on my mind for a while about becoming a yoga teacher and certifying as a yoga teacher. So I made that decision. I sort of lost my job due to COVID. So it also gave me a lot more time to devote to like a certification, which was sort of a blessing in disguise, to be honest. And I committed to a yoga teacher certification. My intention of going for this test or this course was to just help myself, to find a way that I can move my body in a safe way and give it benefits rather than harm myself, because I didn't trust anyone else. I've never met a yoga teacher with a chronic condition, with arthritis, that would know how to help me. So I took it upon myself and I sort of went the big way out, and I qualified as a yoga teacher. Halfway through my qualifications, after finding out the benefits of yoga for the body, for a chronic illness patient, and the way that it truly helps us, I was like, I can't keep this just to myself. Like, I can't just keep all of these benefits and these amazing things that we can help our bodies just to myself. And that is when I made that decision of just trying out and seeing what will happen if I start teaching, if it's even for me, if I even can do it, because it's a scary thing when you start off.
Yeah, it is.
And I guess that is just like history now. Now it's the best thing that would have ever happened to me. I'm so grateful, and I'm so full of love to be able to give that to other people and to show people that, yeah, yoga is accessible to us. And yoga doesn't have to be standing on your head or doing some crazy arm balances. Let's forget about that with my wrist.
Right.
It's like there's so many other ways of movement. And when you find the right one, your body will just thank you for it. I had one lady message to me, and she was saying like, oh, I don't have enough spoons for yoga today. So Spoonie term, energy like theory thingy.
If you don't know what a spoon is, go back to the episode where we explain the spoon theory.
Perfect. Okay. There we go. So you've got that definition there. And I said to her, I was like, yeah, but yoga is meant to give you more spoons. That's the purpose. You come to yoga and you get more spoons at the end of it. It shouldn't drain you. So try restorative, try yoga nidra, and you'll actually feel more energetic and more productive afterwards. And that is the thing about yoga. Yoga shouldn't be draining you. It should be giving you something helpful, something more positive afterwards, and not just draining you out of it where you feel like you have to stay in bed because you've done yoga. is the complete opposite of a fitness workout from that angle of pushing your body to like further than its limits, to just going and meeting yourself and your body at a specific point every single time you get on your mat or in bed, because you can do yoga in bed too.
I love that so much, because I also deeply believe that exercise should give you energy. Movement should give you energy. I actually don't like calling it exercise anymore. I think it should just be called movement. And I love that you're approaching it in a way of, yes, there might be some days where you want to do something that's maybe a little bit more challenging for your body because that's just where you're at that day. But there's also days where your movement is going to be super, super chill, super, super slow, very therapeutic, because that's where you're at that day. And I know a lot of people, when they get a chronic illness diagnosis, they seem to get well, have you tried yoga? Have you tried the green juice? And all of these things can be good when you find what works for you. And so, yeah, going into a typical yoga class at a gym or at a yoga studio probably is not going to be a great fit, but maybe you could work up to it one day, or on some days you could do it. But just being able to have the different options to give your body what it needs in that moment to give you more spoons versus take that away. I think that distinction is so important. And if anyone takes one thing away from listening to you talk about how yoga can be so beneficial, I hope that's what they take away.
Yeah. And plus, with you saying that too, Chelsea, and what Paulina said was like, people will say, you know, when you have a chronic illness and they're like, oh, have you tried yoga or have you tried green juice, which we've all heard all that stuff. People tend to offer these pieces of advice for like a cure, you know, that this is going to make you better. But I really like that you said, you know, it should give you spoons, it should give you energy. And that is like, that's something so much easier to wrap your mind around. Like, yeah, I'm just trying to improve my daily life, you know, rather than like, oh, I'm going to cure this illness. And maybe that's part of, I really like that, because we did an episode called how to support a spoonie. And we definitely were like, yeah, stop telling us to like do all of these things, because, you know, but taking that view, that is nice. And that's exactly what drew me to Pilates as well, was the same things. Like when you said that you went in and you were basically in tears. I mean, that's exactly what happened to me too. I went into Pilates and I started like, I cried like my first session, because I was like, holy shit, I just exercised and it didn't hurt. And I actually had some pain relief. Like, what is this? And then I quit my job and became a Pilates instructor like 3 weeks later, or trained to become a Pilates instructor, I should say. I wasn't just like a Pilates instructor, but I trained. But, you know, it's interesting that you say that, because, and especially like Chelsea, with you talking about movement versus exercise, because I know that in the last like 4 to 6 months for me, I have not been prioritizing movement or exercise or the things that I know actually like factually work for me, which is Pilates or gentle yoga works better for me than like the Ashtanga and stuff like that. But I have not been able to prioritize it because, and I'm sure that you've experienced this as well, Paulina, and Chelsea, I'm sure you've experienced it too, but sometimes you kind of lose connection with your body and you don't really know the right movement, or you need like eyes on you or hands on you. And that's the place that I've been in. Like, I don't really trust even my own training for my body right now. Like a little bit I do. I mean, I'll lay on the mat and I know what feels good and doesn't feel good, and I'll do things or stop doing things. But I also I'm in that place a little bit of like hopelessness, where I'm like, I need someone to show me and tell me and teach me. I need to like follow instruction and be guided into relearning that movement feels okay and it's healing and it's beneficial and it's going to give me energy. And so I've been trying like here and there. I've taken a few online Pilates classes because my mentor and teacher that I loved went virtual with COVID. And I was like, oh my God, I can take class with her now, you know, because we live states away. So I've like been sprinkling that in. And then I've been looking at starting to work at Chelsea's studio as well. And I told her, I was like, I need sessions. Like I need to come in. And I signed up for your sloth yoga because I'm like, yeah, like intuitively, I'm like, that sounds like a really good decision for me. So I totally agree with what Chelsea said. And everything you've said, Paulina, is like when you are out there, and if you are doing exercise and you are feeling so drained from it and it's taking all your spoons away, it may not be the right exercise for you.
And I think it's true for every person on the planet.
It's true for
if
everybody.
You're exhausted after your workout, please drop the intensity. All right, I'll get off my soapbox because I can go on for a really long time on that.
But it's true, like even in our Mastering Energy workbook, I put in there that on some days, like Pilates gives me spoons. On most days, exercise and Pilates was giving me spoons. And then now, like with this fistula and the abscess and my surgery, I have like regressed kind of, or maybe not, regressed might not be the right word. I've just basically like lost that connection with my body. And I'm kind of like, I need to relearn how to move to give me spoons. And so that also goes to show everybody it's a forever practice. So just like you experienced, Paulina, where you did that class with your instructor from before online and you're like, oh shit, I can't do this anymore right now. This isn't what's right. And now you've relearned what's right for your body. So for those listening who are interested in movement or are doing movement, it's that's why they're movement practices. That's why it's Pilates practice, yoga practice. And practice. Like you have to keep trying and finding what's right for you. I'm so glad that we finally got you on and that you shared this story, because there's so much that we didn't know about your story and your experience with rheumatoid arthritis. And you've obviously had ups and downs, and the experience of like the experience of experiencing healthcare in two different countries. I'm really glad that you shared that perspective, because Chelsea and I really want to do more for advocating for yourself in the healthcare system. And, Chelsea, as we work on that, like that shouldn't just be US based, because it sounds like the US is closer to the UK versus Germany. I really love hearing about their intake form in Germany, the difference. That's huge. I started going to
but that also could be that individual doctor. That might not be so people living in Germany, message us with what your experience is.
It's done in the whole practice. So like that whole practice that I go to, because it's a little bit of a bigger one. So it's not just a practice for this specific doctor, but sort of this whole clinic, they do that for everyone. But that's true. I don't know if other practices do the same thing.
It'd be curious. There's a physical therapist here that I've gone to here in Wichita, and it's more of a women's like physical therapy. And I went there for back stuff and then also like pelvic PT. And they had their intake form was more standard, like circle, on the stick man and stuff. But they would have you take like a survey in your first session and then a survey at your end of your sessions, like 12 or whatever your insurance has decided you're going to have. And in that survey, it would ask some questions like, are you able to enjoy social events, or does your pelvic pain interfere with that? And so it would ask some questions, or like it asked about sexual intercourse, work, standing, sitting, and so it was more thorough. But I've been to a handful of specialists, Western medicine or alternative medicine, and none, I don't even know if I could count how many doctors I've been to. None had a form quite like that of like, what is it like running to the bus or lifting a box? And then scales of, can you do this without pain? Can you not do it at all? Can you do it with pain, et cetera? That's just really good. And so as we begin to like change the world and the entire healthcare system, because Chelsea and I are on that mission, we should encourage all doctors to have an intake form like that. So stay tuned.
If you're a doctor listening, please add that to your practice.
And in the year 2028, when we have taken over healthcare systems.
Oh God.
Oh God.
That's a really quick goal.
I think it's so important to like share these different things in different countries, because if we're not aware of what's happening somewhere else, then we don't think that there's anything better. And it sort of seems maybe silly to ask your doctor or to even seek out a better doctor, because you're like, well, this is what it is, and that's just the best of it. And then, so from that side, and I love that you mentioned like moving, like exercising or yoga, not calling it exercise, but calling it movement. This is something that I stand for so much. This is why my yoga, when you look at my, like all of my yoga classes or my slogan or whatever, it says therapeutic mindful movement. Like not even in there, don't even have yoga, because I feel like it's so true. We've been approached so many times by people with these amazing cures, and I feel like it's sort of like a two-sided thing. I think we sort of stab ourselves in the back of this with this behavior too. But as soon as we hear cure, we shut it off. We're like, brick wall, I don't care what you're saying. This is not true. I'm not going to believe you. This is just like bull crap and whatever. And then we don't even try what that person said. And this is something that I went on a rampage about on my Instagram recently. I was like, actually, you know, if someone comes to us and says, you know, this is going to cure you, then yeah, we know it's not going to be a cure. There's no cure for what we're having. So just look at it as like, okay, it's not going to cure me, but let's see if maybe it can at least help me. Maybe it will at least do something good for me, rather than cutting yourself off completely to something that maybe might be able to help you. Because I think most people, and I say most people because I'm sure that there's some with a different intention, but most people, when they come to you or to us or whatever, they come and say, you know, this is going to cure you. Most of them have a good intention of just being helpful. They just know something, they heard something that, you know, maybe this will help her. And as a friend or as a close person or as someone, they just want to make you feel better. And they're not so careful about the words that they use.
Yeah.
The word cure just slips out of their mouth. They don't even think about it. They don't even understand the impact that one single four-letter word can have on a person. And I feel like, I think everyone in the chronic community, we become a lot more aware of the words that we choose when we talk about anything, because there's so many triggers to a lot of different chronic conditions, so many triggers for mental health, so many triggers for all of these different things, and cure is one of these triggers for a lot of us. Like as soon as you hear that word, you're like, no, shut off, like whatever this person is saying is not right. And I feel like, yeah, this is why I say this is sort of like we're stabbing ourselves in the back here, because we are putting that brick wall of not trying something, of not trying that class, of not trying that movement, of not, I don't know, working on your mental health or having that green smoothie. You know, you never know, you might even like the taste of it. So
yeah, I do like the taste of green smoothies personally. I do. I like them.
Exactly. So it's just like, you know what, let's try to think and try to look at another person as they're just trying to help me. They just don't know the right way to talk to me in this topic, because we can't expect people to know. We can't expect people to know what it is like. Coming from my own experience, no one in my family has arthritis or a chronic condition that we're aware of anyway. So we don't really know anyone. And if you look on Google, if you look on the adverts that are surrounding you on the TV or outside on the buses or anywhere, when you see arthritis, you see old people, old joints, older generations, like osteoarthritis. So this is like one type of arthritis that seems to be advertised and marketed out there. So if that is what's surrounding us, how can we expect someone to know that, yeah, a 5-year-old, an 18-year-old can also have arthritis, and it doesn't mean, you know, deformed joints. It doesn't mean this or that. If the world is not being educated on it, we can't expect people to know that. I didn't know about it. If someone came to me the age of 16, someone came to me and told me this, I'd be like, wow, is this really possible? Like I would just question it out loud, but not in a disbelief, but in more of like, wow, I didn't really know that that was possible. So when I was diagnosed at the age of 18, then it was like, oh, actually, yeah, this is possible. And then you go to your doctor and you see other younger people there or older people as well. And then you see that difference, you do your research more. And then you find out that, yeah, there's other generations there that have it and other ages that have it as well. But only once you come across it, or once you read it somewhere, or once you've seen it somewhere. And if we haven't, then it's really hard to expect someone to have that knowledge if they never were even told about it. So yeah, long story short, about this cure word being a trigger, let's not stab ourselves in the back with it as well.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, because one of the goals of our podcast is to share stories like yours, so then that way more people are aware of different chronic experiences, different illnesses, and just there's a little bit less of the, oh, I didn't know that was a possibility. So thank you, Paulina, for so much for coming and talking with us, and not only sharing your story, but sharing your experience with yoga, which sometimes I think can be kind of a trigger for some people in the chronic illness community, and being able to reframe how it can really be something that helps your body, and then how to view it a little differently so that it does help you and doesn't put you in bed for the rest of the day or the next week.
Freaking well said, Chelsea. Yeah, that's right. Because yoga is like a trigger, and you are like reframing that with this episode. So basically the whole world needs to listen to it.
And I think it's our mission, right? When we're all on Instagram sharing your stories, even if you have 10 followers, you're helping these 10 people see something from a different angle. And if you don't post something, and I mean, I'm not saying this that you have to. We all go through this process where our condition is ours. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to share it with anyone else. And that's completely fine as well. But when you get to a point of maybe potentially wanting to share about it, it makes such a huge impact. We can help so many people just like what you girls are doing. Just by sharing our stories, we can learn so much from each other. When I first was diagnosed, I jumped on Facebook and I searched for like rheumatoid arthritis groups. And I think that was like one of the biggest mistakes that I did, because all of the groups that I found on Facebook were either filled with super old people or people who were completely against medication, that every single post was super negative, super like, don't take this is poison, it's gonna worsen like your life and whatever.
Those groups can be great, but they can also be really negative and depressing.
Yeah, dude.
When you get diagnosed, you know you're going to be taking this medication. The side effects. We're not stupid. We know what we're taking into our bodies. But we also know that, I would like to be able to get dressed and walk by my own, like by myself. Yeah. So I'd rather take this medication to get and at least have a good quality of life that I do have, and make it the best quality of life that I can. So seek out something more positive. Seek out those like better groups. If something doesn't serve you in a good, positive way, then there's literally no reason for it to be there for you. There's literally no reason for you to surround yourself with that. This is why I love Instagram so much. I actually haven't come across, I mean, this is also me saying, because I stand by that whole, if something doesn't serve you, you just get rid of it. And as soon as I see negativity or something that I really don't see as helpful to me, I just don't associate myself with that. I block it, move on, I forget about it. And I feel like the Instagram community that we are surrounded with, like myself and your Instagram that you guys have, we're all filled with such positivity around us about medication, about symptoms, about not feeling great, about it being okay to not feel great. And I feel like that has so much more power and so much more benefit to a newly diagnosed or someone who's been diagnosed for 20 years or however long. It can only help you to surround yourself with people who are going to uplift you more.
Yeah. Yes.
So if people want to follow you on Instagram, Paulina, because they need to, where can they find you?
Yes, on Instagram. So it's very simple now. It's just with.Paulina on Instagram. Or I also have the Chronically Happy account, which is just basically like a community account for the chronic members, for all of us to come together. So it's not just a profile about me. It has tons of takeovers for everyone to get to know each other. And that is _chronically_happy_.
Perfect.
The version was taken.
And those will be linked in the bio.
In our show notes.
In our show notes. Because I'm just talking about Instagram, so I'm so used to being like, link in bio. But no, they'll be linked in the show notes because this is the podcast.
Yeah, and we're connected with Paulina often on Instagram as well. So you can definitely easily find her through us too, because we definitely watch all the stuff and we get to message a lot. So it's really nice to finally like chat this way for the interview. And I really enjoyed this hour. There was so much great stuff that you shared. Thank you so very much. And I can't wait for sloth yoga in a couple of days.
Yes. Yay. Thank you so much for having me, girls.
Thanks for listening. If you love this podcast and want to show your support, please leave a review, share the podcast with others, or join us in the Spoonie Hub.
If you'd like to connect with Cassie and I, you can find us on Instagram at The Real Spoonies Unite, or on our website, mywellnesshub.co, where you can find all sorts of resources and you can find the Spoonie Hub. Talk to you soon.